If you feel so alone, you can tend to get a little depressed. And depression, when you don't talk about it, it can lead to some pretty dark times. You can start to feel real alone and real ashamed of yourself. Like you don't want to talk to anyone because, okay, one thing, you're on top of being depressed, you're ashamed of being gay, and then you're depressed. So then like, you just feel like you're all around a failure.
Parents have this kind of dreams that, you know, once they bring a baby in this world, that their baby's gonna have a wife, they're gonna have these beautiful kids, the 2.5, you know, the picket white fence, the whole thing. But what they don't realize is they could still have that picket white fence with the 2.5 kids, just with the same sex.
Well, there's a lot of depression due to the fact that you haven't told anyone. There'll be depression where you did tell someone and, you know, the person you thought would be understanding is not so understanding. It'll be depression where, you know, you like that someone and they don't really like you the same way back.
My personal way of dealing with different issues is to listen to people. It's listen to the person and what they have to say and how they're interpreting everything, how they're feeling. Because a lot of times they don't even understand it. But if you can listen to them and let them talk, let them, you know, figure it out by talking, it helps them a lot. So I think that definitely listening, doing some research. If you're not sure, you know, how can I address this? Maybe there's a local group that you can speak to. Maybe there's, you know, a friend of a friend who has experience dealing with teenagers who are questioning or, you know, etc. And of course, talking to the student or to the teenager and saying, is it okay if you speak with so-and-so? Is it okay if I talk to this person and get some advice? Because I'm not really sure how to deal with it. But, you know, building trust, letting the child talk and really listening to them, letting them figure it out by talking.
What we learned was that the suicide rate was really much higher because of the isolation and the feeling of lack of connectedness to everyone else, both from the depression point of view, from the gay point of view, and then from the suicidality point of view. There was no redeeming me, was what they said. And that's when we also learned about the hopelessness issue as being the #1 indicator of suicide, when you hear that word. So I think it's pervasive, it's real, it's coming, it's growing again, and I'm hearing. And I think we have to open up the subject and welcome these kids into ways that they can get treatment. Not just wait for them, but go and get them. To me, homophobia is one of two things generally: a way of expressing in a pinpoint your overall anger as a person. Because people who are phobic anything, that's an angry phobia, are just putting it all into a nozzle and aiming it at a group that they feel are vulnerable, that they can be on top of or better than. Or it's a fear of what's inside of you that someone else is bringing out on you that makes you uncomfortable. So removing the source or diminishing the source helps you feel better. That's it. That to me is what it is, one or the other. And a lot of homophobia is fear of self.
You could be jumped, you can, well, being jumped is the worst. You can result in like being harassed during class and they not wanting you to be around them. And then that could mess up your education as well.
The gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer queer community has developed various things. The coming out process certainly is, and the discussion about coming out is certainly one way that we've kind of dealt with homophobia. One of the other things that we've done over the years is to kind of develop these pride events. Much of what we've done politically has been really a response to homophobia.
Just real simple, it's anti-gay. A good portion of it, I think, may be based on people who see themselves in other people and don't want to address that. And they have hidden in the closet by it. And it's very easy to attack someone who's doing all the things that you want to be able to do, but for whatever reason you can't do. That's my definition of homophobia.
People are scared of homosexuals because they don't understand, or they fear that, you know, that they're going to get something, that they're going to become gay if someone touches them. People feel that way. They just don't understand.
My understanding about homophobia is, it's like, for me, it's two types. The first one is the ignorant type, where people don't educate themselves about like homosexuals and their like other people, and they just have this closed-minded theory that this person has to be this right, and if they're not this, then they don't fit my environment. You know, forget them. But then the second one of homophobia is like when you see someone and they remind you of yourself. So you start hating them so much because they remind you so much of yourself. So then you start lashing out on that person instead of just like accepting who you are and just like, all right, I'm gay, who cares?
Very good.
Harassment, you could probably plan on getting jumped, or you could like if they won't jump you, then they'll just harass you or like steal your phone, steal your money. I want to say report it, but you could plan on no action being taken. I say they think they could play hardball, you could play hardball right back with a whole bunch of friends. I say you go for yours.
I don't think doing nothing is an option. I would say the best thing is to act and to seek help.
Domestic violence for gay, lesbians, and bis and transgenders is hard to find a place for it, because being in a shelter, if you go to a shelter from being beaten, then they might also get beaten in the shelter and not be accepted. So it can be a fallout there also. But you need to protect yourself and know the type of person and things that can happen, and know and have a way to get out of it.
Depending where you're at, depending on the teacher, if you trust the teacher, if you trust the security officer, the principal, more or less, I will go to a counselor. Go to a place where you feel comfortable, where you know it's confidential.
I think one of the things that's helped a lot is the proliferation of the gay-straight alliances. I think the fact that there's a visible straight support group for gay people helps mitigate it to some degree, because they're not walking alone. They have friends who, you know, reach across the border, so to speak. I think things like this are amazing ways of reaching people who may never speak up but may hear or see something that says it's okay to look for someone like you. And then, you know, promoting the kinds of things that you've done, for instance, in the YES program, like the trips to the city where people go as a group and there's a mixture. That's the best way to do it, because the only way to break down the fear and the stereotypes are to have people become friends.
Physically, I say try to get a lot of people to back you up. People who actually could understand. They don't even have to be friends. It's people who could look at you and be like, it's not fair that they're treating you this way. Emotionally, I say educate themselves, because people are going to lash out with the Bible verses and stuff like that. So I say educate yourself, get a lot of stuff. So when they start lashing stuff at you, you just be like, blah, 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 I got this, da, da, da. It's okay for me to be this way. Oh, well, get over it.
Well, let me say something first about physical intimacy, period, in adolescence, no matter what kind it is. What kids need to know is that once you move to a level of physical intimacy, no matter how long and deep your friendship is, it changes your friendship. Because physical intimacy in this culture connotes ownership. Once you are physically intimate, there's an assumption that you are mine and I am yours, and that we are it. And adolescence is too fluid for that to be the case. So if a choice is made by two people, gay, straight, or whatever, to have a physical relationship, the first thing they need to know is that the relationship is going to change. If that's okay with them, and they are experimenting physically out of an affection for each other, I would stay away from the labels. I think what it means is that there's two people who have affection and care for each other at this stage in their life, and they're trying some things out. Many people experiment with the same sex before they experiment with the opposite sex. It's just a part of our society. The issue is, does the person themselves, the kid, do they want to be labeled? Do they want to identify as gay? If they do, God love them, they should. Because the earlier they do that, the better it is. Because the longer they have to accept themselves and figure out their place in this world. So I would always promote earlier identification with a comfort level rather than later.
You should really get to know the other person before you take that step. You might find out later that this person is not who you thought they were. So really getting to know them before you go that far, and feeling out how they're feeling, figuring that out just really should help, because you don't want to, and it really depends on who you are, but some people wouldn't really want to open themselves up, and then, something really terrible happens. But if you were prepared for how that person would react, it might give you some level of knowledge that is required to be that intimate and that open.